Are you tired of the same old solutions and ideas? Are you ready to break free from the constraints of conventional thinking? Welcome to the world of thinking out of the box, a realm where creativity and innovation reign supreme. Get ready to challenge your assumptions, push past boundaries, and discover new possibilities as we explore the power of thinking differently. If you embrace unpopular thinking and make decisions based upon what works best and what is right rather than what is commonly accepted, know this: in your early years you won't be as wrong as people think you are. In your later years, you won't be as right as people think you are. And all through the years, you will be better than you thought you could be. If you want to become a good thinker, then start preparing yourself for the possibility of becoming unpopular. So grab your imagination in this video, Question Popular Thinking from How Successful People Think book by the great author, speaker, and pastor John C.Maxwell. I promise you great pleasure, knowledge, and benefit, with thinking out of the box story in the end. Welcome to Rebook Channel, a channel that will help you learn skills from authors and speakers, international personalities, to step towards success and wealth in your life. If you are interested, honor me by subscribing. Let's get started. Question Popular Thinking. I'm not an answering machine, I'm a questioning machine. If we have all the answers, how come we're in such a mess? Douglas Cardinal. Popular thinking is too average to understand the value of good thinking, too inflexible to realize the impact of changed thinking, too lazy to master the process of intentional thinking, too small to see the wisdom of big picture thinking, too satisfied to unleash the potential of focused thinking, too traditional to discover the joy of creative thinking, too naive to recognize the importance of realistic thinking, too undisciplined to release the power of strategic thinking, too limiting to feel the energy of possibility thinking, too trendy to embrace the lessons of reflective thinking, too shallow to question the acceptance of popular thinking, too proud to encourage the participation of shared thinking, too self-absorbed to experience the satisfaction of unselfish thinking, and too uncommitted to enjoy the return of bottom-line thinking. Economist John Maynard Keynes, whose ideas profoundly influenced economic theory and practices in the 20th century, asserted, "The difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from the old ones." It might be challenging to think differently, whether you're a businessperson breaking with company tradition, a preacher introducing new musical genres to your congregation, a new mother rejecting old wives' tales passed down from your parents, or a teenager eschewing the latest trends. Many of the concepts in this book are at odds with conventional wisdom. Your ability to learn the types of thinking this book promotes will be severely constrained if you choose popularity over sound reasoning. In business, it refers to the widely held beliefs and opinions about how businesses should operate and succeed. These ideas may be influenced by various factors such as current economic conditions, business trends, and the success stories of other companies. Popular thinking in business can change over time as new ideas and strategies emerge and old ones become less effective. It is important to note that popular thinking is not always the most effective approach, and businesses should be willing to consider alternative strategies and approaches in order to be successful. If you want to become a good thinker, then start preparing yourself for the possibility of becoming unpopular. Why you should question the acceptance of popular thinking. I've given you some broad reasons for questioning the acceptance of popular thinking. Now allow me to be more specific. 1. Popular thinking sometimes means not thinking. Popular thinking can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can help to establish a sense of community and shared understanding. When people think similarly, they can more easily communicate and work together. On the other hand, popular thinking can also be detrimental because it can lead to groupthink and a lack of diversity of thought. When people simply adopt the beliefs and opinions of the majority without critically evaluating them, they may not be thinking for themselves. This can lead to a lack of creativity, innovation, and progress. It can also be influenced by mass media, social media, and other forms of communication that can shape people's perceptions and opinions. These platforms can be powerful tools for disseminating information, but they can also be used to spread misinformation and propaganda. In these cases, it can be dangerous because it can lead to the spread of false or misleading information. It's important for individuals to be aware of the potential negative effects of popular thinking and to make an effort to think for themselves. This means being open-minded, willing to consider different perspectives, and critically evaluating information before forming an opinion. Additionally, it's important to be able to identify and resist manipulation and manipulation tactics. In summary, while it can be useful in some situations, it can also be detrimental because it can lead to a lack of independent thought and critical thinking. It is important for individuals to be aware of the potential negative effects of popular thinking and to make an effort to think for themselves. My friend Kevin Myers sums up the idea of popular thinking by saying, "The problem with popular thinking is that it doesn't require you to think at all. Thinking well requires effort. Everyone would be a good thinker if it were simple. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals attempt to lead simple lives. They don't want to put in the mental effort or spend what success will cost them. It's simpler to follow other people's lead and trust that they gave it some thought. Look at some expert stock market suggestions. By the time they publish their picks, the majority are riding the crest of an existing trend rather than starting one. By the time the broader public learns about it, the people who are going to profit from the stocks they recommend have already done so. People aren't doing their own thinking when they follow a trend mindlessly." 2. Popular thinking offers false hope. Many individuals often seek a sense of security in conforming to popular beliefs and opinions. The idea that if a large number of people are following a certain trend or idea, it must be the right one. They assume that if most people accept it, it must be fair, equal, compassionate, and considerate. However, this is not always the case. History has shown that popular thinking can often be misguided and mistaken. For instance, it was once widely believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, yet scientists like Copernicus proved through their research that it was not. Similarly, the idea that surgery didn't require clean instruments was widely accepted, but Joseph Lister's discovery of antiseptic practices saved countless lives. Popular thinking also opposed the rights of women to vote, yet activists like Emmeline Pankhurst and Susan B. Anthony fought for and won that right. Even more alarmingly, popular thinking led to the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany, resulting in the murder of millions and the near destruction of Europe. It's important to remember that there is a significant difference between acceptance and intelligence. People may say that there is safety in numbers, but that is not always the case. Sometimes it becomes painfully clear that the prevalent viewpoint is incorrect. Sometimes it's less obvious. Take into account, for instance, the astounding number of Americans who have racked up substantial credit card debt. Anyone with sound financial judgment will advise you against doing it. However, millions of people blindly adopt the buy now, pay later mentality, and so they continue to pay. Many of the claims made by popular thought are untrue. Don't be duped by them. Benno Mullerhill, a professor in the University of Cologne Genetics Department, tells how one morning in high school he stood last in a line of 40 students in the schoolyard. His physics teacher had set up a telescope so that his students could view a planet and its moons. The first student stepped up to the telescope. He looked through it, but when the teacher asked if he could see anything, the boy said no. His nearsightedness hampered his view. The teacher showed him how to adjust the focus, and the boy finally said he could see the planet and moons. One by one, the students stepped up to the telescope and saw what they were supposed to see. Finally, the second to last student looked into the telescope and announced that he could not see anything. "You idiot," shouted the teacher, "you have to adjust the lenses." The student tried, but he finally said, "I still can't see anything. It is all black." The teacher, disgusted, looked through the telescope himself and then looked up with a strange expression. The lens cap still covered the telescope. None of the students had been able to see anything. 3. Popular thinking is slow to embrace change. Is the widespread resistance to the adoption of electric vehicles. Despite evidence of their environmental and financial benefits, many individuals still cling to the popular belief that gasoline-powered cars are the norm and hesitate to make the switch. It can take time for the masses to accept new ideas and technologies, even when they are clearly superior. Popular thinking loves the status quo. It puts its confidence confidence in the idea of the moment and holds on to it with all its might. As a result, it resists change and dampens innovation. Donald M. Nelson, former president of the Society of Independent Motion Picture Producers, criticized popular thinking when he asserted, "We must discard the idea that past routine, past ways of doing things are probably the best ways. On the contrary, we must assume that there is probably a better way to do almost everything. We must stop assuming that a thing which has never been done before probably cannot be done at all." 4. Popular thinking brings only average results. For example, a company that follows the same strategies as its competitors may only achieve average profits rather than excelling and becoming a market leader. To achieve exceptional results, it may be necessary to think differently and come up with unique and innovative ideas. The bottom line, popular thinking brings mediocre results. Here is popular thinking in a nutshell. Popular equals normal equals average. It's the least of the best and the best of the least. We limit our success when we adopt popular thinking. It represents putting in the least energy to just get by. You must reject common thinking if you want to accomplish uncommon results. One historic example of how popular thinking can bring only average results is the story of the British naval ships in the 18th century. At the time, the popular thinking was that ships should be built as large and heavily armed as possible, with a focus on firepower over speed and maneuverability. This conventional wisdom was supported by popular naval architects and shipbuilders of the time. However, a Scottish shipbuilder named John Shank had a different idea. He believed that ships should be built with a focus on speed and maneuverability rather than firepower. He argued that a faster, more agile ship would have a strategic advantage in battle, as it could outmaneuver and outrun the slower, heavily armed ships. Despite Shank's unorthodox ideas, he was able to convince the British Navy to experiment with his design. They built a small ship, named the Experiment, using Shank's principles and put it to the test against the larger and heavily armed ships of the time. The Experiment proved to be faster, more agile, and able to outmaneuver the larger ships, making it a formidable force on the seas. This experiment helped the British Navy to see the benefits of Shank's design, and as a result, they began to incorporate his ideas into the construction of their ships. The experiment and the ships built using Shank's principles were instrumental in the British Navy's success in several naval engagements during the Napoleonic Wars. In conclusion, the story of the British naval ships in the 18th century illustrates how popular thinking and conventional wisdom can bring only average results. John Shank was able to challenge the popular thinking of his time and prove that his unorthodox ideas could bring greater success. His story is a reminder that it's important to think outside the box and question the status quo in order to achieve true success. How to question the acceptance of popular thinking. Popular thinking has often proved to be wrong and limiting. Questioning it isn't necessarily hard once you cultivate the habit of doing so. The difficulty is in getting started. Begin by doing the following things. 1. Think before you follow. Many individuals follow others almost automatically. Sometimes they do so because they desire to take the path of least resistance. Other times they fear rejection, or they believe there's wisdom in doing what everyone else does. But if you want to succeed, you need to think about what's best, not what's popular. Challenging popular thinking requires a willingness to be unpopular and go outside of the norm. Following the tragedy of September 11, 2001, for example, few people willingly chose to travel by plane. But that was the best time to travel. Crowds were down, security was up, and airlines were cutting prices. About a month after the tragedy, my wife, Margaret, and I heard that Broadway shows had lots of seats and many New York hotel rooms remained empty. Popular thinking said, "Stay away from New York." We used that as an opportunity. We got cheap plane tickets to the city, booked a room in a great hotel for about half price, and got tickets to the most sought-after show, The Producers. As we took our seats in the theater, we sat next to a woman beside herself with excitement. "I can't believe I'm finally here," she said to us. "I've waited so long. This is the best show on Broadway, and the hardest to get tickets to." Then she turned to look me in the eye and said, "I've had my tickets for a year and a half, waiting to see this show. How long ago did you get yours?" "You won't like my answer," I replied. "Oh, come on," she said. "How long?" "I got mine 5 days ago," I answered. She looked at us in horror. By the way, she was right. It's one of the best shows we've seen in a while, and we got to see it it only because we were willing to go against popular thinking when everyone else was staying at home. As you begin to think against the grain of popular thinking, remind yourself that unpopular thinking, even when resulting in success, is largely underrated, unrecognized, and misunderstood. Unpopular thinking contains the seeds of vision and opportunity. Unpopular thinking is required for all progress. The next time you feel ready to conform to popular thinking on an issue, stop and think. You may not want to create change for its own sake, but you certainly don't want to blindly follow just because you haven't thought about what's best. 2. Appreciate thinking different from your own. One of the ways to embrace innovation and change is to learn to appreciate how others think. To do that, you must continually expose yourself to people different from yourself. My brother, C.Maxwell, a good businessman and an innovative thinker, continually challenges popular thinking by thinking differently. He says, "Most of our people in sales and middle management come from businesses with products and services different from ours. That constantly exposes us to new ways of thinking. We also discourage our people from active participation in formal business and trade associations and fraternities because their thinking is quite common. They don't need to spend lots of time thinking the way everyone else in the industry does. Spend time with people who have varied backgrounds, educational levels, career experiences, personal interests, etc. as you work to refute conventional wisdom. The people you spend the most time with will influence the way you think. Spending time with unconventional thinkers increases your likelihood of challenging conventional wisdom and establishing new ground. 3. Continually question your own thinking. It's human nature to stick with what has worked in the past, even if it's no longer effective. Unfortunately, this tendency can hold us back from achieving greater success in the future. As Andy Stanley, a leadership expert, recently pointed out in his lesson challenging the process at INJOY's Catalyst Conference, progress is only possible through change. This means that we must be willing to question popular thinking and traditions, even if they were once revolutionary ideas. It's important to remember that what may have been a good idea in the past may not necessarily be the best idea for the future. If you played a role in establishing the current processes and systems within your organization, it can be challenging to let go and embrace change, even when it's for the better. That's why it's crucial to question and examine your own thinking. When we become too attached to our own ideas and ways of doing things, we limit the potential for progress and improvement. To drive change and improvement within an organization, it's essential to challenge our own thinking and be open to new ideas and approaches. 4. Try new things in new ways. When was the last time you embarked on a new endeavor? Do you shy away from doing new things or taking risks? Innovating is one of the best methods to get out of your own thought patterns. You can accomplish that in small, everyday ways, like taking an alternative road to work. When dining at your favorite restaurant, order something new. To assist you with a project you are familiar with, ask a different coworker. Get off of autopilot. Unpopular thinking asks questions and seeks options. In 1997, my 3 companies moved to Atlanta, Georgia. It's a great city, but traffic at peak times can get crazy. Immediately after moving here, I began looking for and testing alternative routes to desired destinations so that I would not be caught in traffic. From my house to the airport, for example, I have discovered and used 9 routes within 8 miles and 12 minutes from one another. Often I am amazed to see people sitting on the freeway when they could be moving forward on an alternative route. What is the problem? Too many people have not tried new things in new ways. It is true, most people are more satisfied with old problems than committed to finding new solutions. How you go about doing new things in new ways is not as important as making sure you do it. Besides, if you try to do new things in the same way that everyone else does, are you really going against popular thinking? Get out there and do something different today. 5. Get used to being uncomfortable. When it comes down to it, conventional wisdom is cozy. It resembles an old chair that has been customized to fit the owner's quirks. The issue with most vintage recliners is that no one has recently given them any attention. If so, they would concur that a replacement is needed. You must learn to tolerate discomfort if you wish to defy conventional wisdom and embrace achievement. If you embrace unpopular thinking and make decisions based upon what works best and what is right rather than what is commonly accepted, know this: in your early years you won't be as wrong as people think you are. In your later years, you won't be as right as people think you are. And all through the years, you will be better than you thought you could be. Story part. In a small Italian town, hundreds of years ago, a small business owner owed a large sum of money to a loan shark. The loan shark was a very old, unattractive-looking guy that just so happened to fancy the business owner's daughter. He decided to offer the businessman a deal that would completely wipe out the debt he owed him. However, the catch was that we would only wipe out the debt if he could marry the businessman's daughter. Needless to say, this proposal was met with a look of disgust. The loan shark said that he would place 2 pebbles into a bag, one white and one black. The daughter would then have to reach into the bag and pick out a pebble. If it was black, the debt would be wiped, but the loan shark would then marry her. If it was white, the debt would also be wiped, but the daughter wouldn't have to marry the loan shark. Standing on a pebble-strewn path in the businessman's garden, the loan shark bent over and picked up 2 pebbles. Whilst he was picking them up, the daughter noticed that he'd picked up 2 black pebbles and placed them both into the bag. He then asked the daughter to reach into the bag and pick one. The daughter naturally had 3 choices as to what she could have done. Refuse to pick a pebble from the bag, take both pebbles out of the bag and expose the loan shark for cheating, pick a pebble from the bag fully well knowing it was black and sacrifice herself for her father's freedom. She drew out a pebble from the bag and before looking at it accidentally dropped it into the midst of the other pebbles. She said to the loan shark, "Oh, how clumsy of me. Never mind, if you look into the bag for the one that is left, you will be able to tell which pebble I picked." The pebble left in the bag is obviously black, and seeing as the loan shark didn't want to be exposed, he had to play along as if the pebble the daughter dropped was white and clear her father's debt. Moral of the story: it's always possible to overcome a tough situation through out-of-the-box thinking and not give in to the only options you think you have to pick from. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will become rich one day, and I promise to help you and give you everything you need to be able to walk the path of wealth, but be ready.